you obtain rental properties. That's one of the best ways of doing it. And you rent them to people. And I think a lot of people have already rented properties for themselves growing up or currently. And so having a piece of property that you rent to people, because that's a needed accommodation for the general population, right? Everyone needs air. Everyone needs to have a place to live. I was like, what is it that everyone should learn and have so that you don't have to worry about your job ever being gone or anything like that? And so real estate investing was what I landed on. The financial freedom that real estate investing allows for people, you get to choose what you're going to do in the morning. You know, that was one of my things. I did not want to wake up to an alarm clock. And so now I just get to wake up whenever I want to wake up.
Hey there, I'm Kaylin Wood, and this is Money Matters for Moms, the show where busy moms turn overwhelm into abundance. Each week we'll talk side hustles, saving hacks, wealth tips, and some energy tips to help make it all stick. Real tools for real financial freedom. No ramen required. Today I'm speaking with Bonnie Laslo. Bonnie has 30 years of experience in successful real estate investing and is a best-selling author. She became financially free at 23 and made her first million at 26. Bonnie is on a mission to teach the simple skill of real estate investing to those looking to change their lives. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. You're the best.
So glad you're here. You made your first million really early. So how'd you get into real estate investing in the first place?
I could not make my rent in college, to be honest. So I started looking for better ways. And believe it or not, I ran into that late night infomercial called Carlton Sheets No Down Payment Method back in the day. And I am like the 3% that buys that program and the 1% that actually opened it up. And I said, I'm going to give this a whirl for a summer because I had the summer off. And I was like, worst case scenario, I might just find a place for myself to where I can live in one of the rooms and rent out the others. And that's exactly what happened and what I did.
Okay. So what exactly is real estate investing for people who don't know?
So someone just coming into real estate investing, to keep it simple, you obtain rental properties. That's one of the best ways of doing it. And you rent them to people. And I think a lot of people have already rented properties for themselves growing up or currently. And so having a piece of property that you rent to people, because that's a needed accommodation for the general population, right? Like everyone needs air. Everyone needs to have a place to live. So between all the different careers and paths that I went through, I was kind of thinking, what is it that everyone really, really should learn and have so that you don't have to worry about your job ever being gone or anything like that? And so real estate investing was what I landed on after looking and just watching people. I found out that housing and having rental properties and real estate investing was something that everyone pretty much understood, having a rental property and people paying you rent for that. And that's what I started teaching, because I started doing it the same exact way when I couldn't make my own rental payments. And I pretty much got a place and I took one of the rooms and I rent out the other 3 rooms. And I remember at the time too, I was paying that landlord or that seller $750. And I was renting out each of the rooms at $350 a piece. And so that was like $1,400 coming in on that one condo, and then paying $750 to that particular seller or owner of that property. And then I was keeping the rest. And I ended up not only having one that I was living in, but I ended up with 6 of those in college.
So if you couldn't make your rent, how in the world did you manage to buy the property in the first place?
Great question. So I ended up finding a property and I did go to my dad and said, hey, would you at least co-sign on what I found was a kiddie condo loan where your parents can go ahead and sign for you. But I went to my 3 friends and I collected from them the first month's rent, last month's rent and security deposit, and I used that money for the down payment.
But how does that work? Typically, when you're buying a house, you've got to have the down payment and you need to go in and sign a whole ton of paperwork.
So the cool thing about real estate investing is when you have that signed annual lease contract and you have the money, that is your income. So whenever they saw that there were 3 signed leases for the rest of the year, you have that money coming in and you've got the down payment money. They're looking to see if you can make that mortgage payment. And at the time I was renting each of those rooms out at $350 a piece. Let's just say that the income that was coming in totally cleared making that payment and then also paying for utilities and all that kind of stuff. And I remember I had $70 left over where I was actually able to live there for free. So not even counting the income of my room if I were to rent it. And they gave me a loan based on the property. So you can get loans, and a lot of people don't realize this, but you can get loans that are asset-based lending, where they're lending against the asset, and you can get into these. And if you're pretty much living in them, the down payment's really low.
Okay, but if you're not living in them, it's different.
If you're not living in them, you would go to a hard money lender, and they also do asset-based lending too. And they will also use the leases. And then you can either use a down payment with a partner, or you could put your own down payment on those particular properties too. So whenever I was starting out, people were asking for like 10% down, or I would have a partner that would come in and put that 10% down, and then we would split the profits 50-50. You can also do owner financing. So there was this one property that I had negotiated $50,000 and it had $8,000 credits at closing. And so at the time, the lender was asking me for 10% down. 10% on a $50,000 house is $5,000, right? Well, I had $8,000 credit. So that covered my down payment. And I actually walked from closing with like a little under $2,000, but I already had that house rented before I had even shown up to closing.
And how can you do that?
Because when you're under contract, you ask the seller, hey, is it okay if I can go ahead and show the property? Or sometimes I would leave the blinds open and I would have people drive by and they would see it and they could peek in the windows and stuff like that. Or from my inspection, I would take video and take photos of it and say, hey, this one's coming online next month. Take a look at the video, take a look at everything. If this is something that you want to do, we can do paperwork. And if for some reason you don't move in or this doesn't close, then you'll get the money back. So it's easy as long as you're open and you're creative.
Well, if you have somebody who's very cautious, would you recommend that they invest in real estate?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know of any other way, honestly, that people are going to be able to get out of the rat race unless you do this. And I find it very important for people to at least go from 0 to 5 units and have 5 units as a hobby. I teach people how to do real estate as a hobby, and then they can decide if they want to take it up a notch. So anyone who's conservative, I can tell you this, a lot of the people that I've coached, they're very analytical people, very cautious, and they're wanting to do the real estate investing. So they have an option to stay at their job or not stay at their job, have that additional freedom. But they are very good at following instructions and executing and being able to understand how the numbers work. So for instance, if it's a $50,000 house and you have $8,000 credits at closing, like they understand, oh, okay, 10% down on a rental house, and then I have extra money left over and I get the difference. I think any person who is even cautious can understand how the money works that way. And then on top of it, if they still were uncomfortable, then they could invest in a house like that with a person like myself or another real estate investor that's advanced. Because remember, people understand numbers. And whenever you have numbers like that on a house, it's amazing what type of partners show up in your life and what type of income you can create. So today, if you don't have 100,000 or you don't have 20 grand to your name or anything like that, you show up with a $50,000 rental house, chances are you might be able to create that pretty quickly. And you could do that by going to your nearest real estate club, or you can get on Zooms that have real estate investors in there too, or networking groups and such, because like I said, cautious people are normally analyzers. They understand numbers. And when you have a lender involved, they most likely aren't going to lend to you on that deal if the deal is bad. So it's good to have multiple eyes on the situation. And as long as everybody's on the same page of how it's going to make money and how that mortgage is going to get paid, I think it's very logical, in my opinion.
Okay. And so for cautious people, you recommend that they start with a hobby line.
They normally have a job, I would think. And so you're doing this in your spare time. So instead of Netflixing your night away or doing random things on the weekends that might not be an income producing activity, I tell people this. I go, you've got 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours to work, 8 hours to do something else in the day. And let's say that half that time you use spending with your family, eating, driving around, whatever you're doing. That's still 4 hours a day that you have that you should be able to carve out for yourself. Times 7, that's 28 hours a week. So within 28 hours a week, or even half of that, you should be able to focus on doing one rental property. And it will take a lot less time than that. But the key is to get into Zooms, get around other people that are doing what you want to do. And someone coming into this for the first time, go from 0 to 5 units first with people that know what they're doing, learning, having that guidance, and watching other people do it over and over again until you're like, okay, I got this. I can go ahead and replicate, or I can do it with somebody and get feedback, honest feedback from a room of 10 to 20 people that are going to give you their concerns or things to think about, or making sure, hey, did you get your insurance before closing? All these little things where you're looking out for each other so that you can get from A to B, 0 to 5 units as a hobby, where you're generating extra residual income coming in every month for yourself and your family. You'll be a totally different person by the time you get to 5 units. And it could be very quickly. I mean, you could do a quadruplex in a house. That's 2 deals and you're at 5. But I encourage people to shoot for 5 units a year, if not more. And then when you get to 5, then I work on you doubling yourself. So then it's 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and etc.
So you actually work with people coaching and doing classes as well.
Yes.
So how is your approach different from other real estate people?
My classes are free. First off, the ones that are 3 times a week, because we are real estate investors. So being able to be a part of a group or a mastermind, whatever you want to call it, we're all working on deals together and growing and expanding. And it's room of millionaires and startups in the same room, and it's free. So we meet 3 times a week doing that. And the other difference I would say is, from what I can see, there's not a lot of real estate investors that allow you to look over their shoulder or twin up or partner up or intern. So we have a thing that's called investor support. So I always encourage everyone to support another investor. So it could be free or it's paid, pretty much interning with each other, or a study partner where you're kind of doing it together and you've got another advanced investor that has already done this multiple times. So you're kind of helping each other out. And I think that's really one of the differences, because there's not a lot of true mentoring going on that isn't going to cost someone tens of thousands of dollars from what I've seen. And I'd much rather you put that money into a property before you go and pay books and tapes. And that way you're putting money into an asset that you can share the wealth in. If there's any sort of other people out there and you're coaching someone about a deal that you think that they should do, then taking some equity in that project or doing that deal with that individual shouldn't be something hard to work out. So that's what I would say is like one of the biggest differences. I do really encourage cooperative business. I welcome everyone to come and be a part. And one of my biggest partners right now, he sat inside that Hobby Millionaire room the same as anyone else. And he came across a deal, which is a 100-house package of houses. And he came to me and asked if I would partner in with him on it because it was way too big for him to do. And I said, what does that look like? And he said 50-50. And I was like, okay. And he had been showing up. He had been one of those people that I got to know over time. And that's what it's about. It's building those relationships to where people are getting to know you and know if you're responsible, if you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Are you coachable? Are you able to replicate based on the information you're being given? And I keep it pretty simple. There's like 5 steps, literally. So number 1 is the Bonnie benchmarks, which you're buying at a $200 benchmark and a 10 cap. Then the second chapter is letters of intent, where you're making offers. The third one is literally the inspection process to make sure you know what you're buying and you know how much things are going to cost that you're going to have to fix. The fourth chapter is the buying process, professionally babysitting everyone, your appraiser, your closing attorney, your lender, everyone under the sun. And then 5, obviously, is property management and what you do with the property once you've actually purchased it. And then it's rinse and repeat over and over and over. And I've been doing it now for about 30 years. And I've done so many deals, I can do them in my sleep. So now it's just a matter of how many can I do at a time. And just last month, we're working on like 26 properties in 1 month. And now I'm coming down to this month where I slowed it down because of the holidays, where we're going to finish up 9 more. So, and when you're doing those kinds of numbers in a month, helping out other people how to do 1 a quarter or 5 a year is just, I mean, you want to be learning from people that do that type of results in front of you. So that will give you confidence that you can do 1, you can do 2, you can do 3, you can do 5, you can do 10, you can do 20. And I encourage that.
Sure. So if anybody is interested, intrigued, maybe a little unsure, they should still show up.
Absolutely. Because you can just listen. And I tell people that show up, whenever we do check-in, your answer for the first time is knowledge and clarity. So whenever you're asked, what are you currently looking for in the next 30 days? I'm looking for knowledge and clarity. And then you'll start seeing other people. I'm looking for a contractor. I'm looking for a deal. I'm looking for a housing inspector. You're going to see everyone in each chapter of the book so that you're going to be able to see the process and it's going to make sense to you so that you're going to feel comfortable with moving forward. And when you know the first deal, you'll know.
What do you mean when you're ready for it?
Yeah. When you know, you'll be like, okay, I can totally see how I'm going to make money on this, how this is going to work. And then enough people have looked at your deal so that you're comfortable with moving forward. And just like I've said to people, a bank isn't going to give you money on a deal that doesn't make any sense.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. We're talking also deals. I teach everyone how to do them 100,000 per unit and below. So we're talking about rental houses that are 3-bedroom houses that are 100,000 and below. Like these are bread and butter, no matter what. Like when 2008 happened, everyone downsized into our properties. And so our rents just went up.
So what happens if you live in an area that has a really high cost of living?
So you live where you want to live, but you invest where it makes sense. Because I mean, if you're living in Beverly Hills or you're living in Paradise, I've got people that live all over. That's fine, but you get to zoom out on your state or your area and literally look at everything that's 100,000 per unit and below. And if you live in a place that has higher pricing on houses, then you're probably going to jump into multifamily duplexes and stuff first, because you should be able to get those ones to where they're 100,000 per unit or below. But like I said, it's going to make sense whenever you're getting into a rental property to where it's so no-brainer.
Well, I love your approach that you open it up and let people come in and see what the process is like and get comfortable with it before they have to make any decisions about it.
And they don't ever have to make a decision if they don't want to. But when you're looking at a decision of staying on the track of working for someone else until your 60s and looking back and realizing you chased a paycheck all your life, it's one of those things too. Like I remember getting up and I was just watching everyone sitting in traffic in the morning. They're going to places that they don't want to go a lot of times. And I'll tell all the people, like my clients, my students, whatever, when you're having that first cup of coffee in the morning or you're sitting in traffic, I want you to think about me. And I want you to do what I did when I was waking up, having to go to places I didn't want to go or doing things I didn't want to do, sitting in traffic, because the financial freedom that real estate investing allows for people, you get to choose what you're going to do in the morning. That was one of my things. I did not want to wake up to an alarm clock. And so now I just get to wake up whenever I want to wake up. It was worth all the efforts and all of the scared factors of going through the process. And I just remember what it was like going through it alone, because back then we didn't have the groups. We didn't really have all of this back in the day. So it was me and the late night infomercial program. So I remember it like it was yesterday. So I'm very aware and conscious of the support that's required.
Well, and you've really done a beautiful job of creating that community where you didn't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one more question for you. If you could only tell women one thing, what would it be?
I would tell women, live into your possibility. Understand that you are a very powerful, wonderful, spiritual being in essence, and you can do anything that you want to do in life, and you can help a lot of people, not just your family, and figure out what those keys look like. And real estate investing is one of those things. Be big, play a big game, get yourself financially free, because you don't even know what type of person you are until you have that kind of squared away. And I think it's very fulfilling to live a life and create a life worth living.
Thanks for tuning in to Money Matters for Moms. I hope today's episode left you inspired to take one little step forward. Check out the resources in the show notes and share this with another mom who's ready to thrive. You've got this, because abundance is easier than you might think.